Well, that sucked. I'm Nick Roush. This is the KSR Football Podcast presented by Revel XP. We're off to a hot start here. Everything's in shambles because, well, you saw what happened Saturday. We're here to talk about it all. I'm Nick Roush, joined by Adam Luckett, Max Duffy, and Drew Franklin, where sometimes the losses, when you speak through them, it can be somewhat cathartic and help you kind of push forward. That might be difficult today because Kentucky couldn't throw a pass. They couldn't call a pass play because it was such a disaster against South Carolina. It was bad. This was supposed to be a affirming win that got us on the right path, and now we're stuck with things are looking bleak. Things are looking bleak, and we're going to try to talk through it today. Max, how we feeling? We feeling good? We feeling chipper?
Where do you start? Unfortunately, we talked all last week, and everyone had already moved on to, are we getting college game day? This win was kind of penciled in the book. We ticked it off, and we didn't really discuss that if it went the other way, how would we feel? And it did go the other way in the end, and we talked about taking care of business against a team that we should be better than. We got more talented players, this, that, extra, like excited about this season, and then we put in a performance like that, and now you're like, well, are we the worst team in the SEC? And
well, technically in the standings, dead last.
Yeah, and now, I mean, obviously we'll go over it for the next hour or so, and there's lots of nuance in every loss and every performance and stuff, and it's never as good or as bad as you think, but that was pretty bad.
Yeah. It's as bad as we think.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good sports fan, and when my team loses, I'm a pretty quick bounce back guy. It's one of my strengths. I can move on, put it behind me, on to the next week. I was looking at my Cheerios this morning, just still sad as I was Saturday night, still in shock, still in disbelief at just how bad Kentucky was. I was very confident, maybe the most confident, and I thought that was justified. Even Vegas had Kentucky as a 10-point favorite. If you told me they'd score 6 points and lose by 25, I couldn't even think of a scenario to get to that point, but that's exactly what happened. 6
points, 6 completions as a 9-point favorite. I'm kind of with you, Drew, where there's like, normally you can kind of compartmentalize and
wipe it off, move on.
I've just got this sense of dread, and I did a good job ignoring it yesterday. We don't got to talk about what happened to your all's teams yesterday, but I did a good job of ignoring it, Luckett. It's just, we let that guy do that to us, Shane Beamer. Like, I thought we were moving past this. I thought we were on the up and up, and instead there's just you're looking down the barrel at number 1 Georgia, and you're thinking, well, when is the point where we get right? When is the point where we can start doing the fun things and talking about fun football? It's really hard right now.
Yeah, to me, it's not even about South Carolina. It's not about Georgia. It's really just about Kentucky and who they are and what they are and where they're headed and the trend lines. Nick, in a lot of ways, the season doesn't start until October 12th now.
Mm-hmm. That's a long time from now.
So you're
a month away.
You're going to sit here and have this South Carolina game and that taste in your mouth, and the fan base is going to stew over that. And you're going to play 2 teams that look like 2 of the best teams in the country here over the next couple of weeks, and then you get Ohio at home in a game you should win. We'll see what happens there. So and you're wondering, like, how bad could this get if it really gets bad? But you're also wondering if they turn it around, like, what is even the ceiling here?
Yeah.
Is the ceiling 7-5? Can you get to 5-3? Can you sweep the 3-game stretch with Vanderbilt, Florida, and Auburn? Maybe. Maybe there's a path to 5-3, and then you could say, hey, maybe they figured some things out. But it's alarming. Like, Nick, the offensive line, they've shared confidence that group was going to be good this year, and that was probably the worst performance. We saw some bad performances in 2022. I don't know if any were as bad as that one. Well, from just the whole game, like there was a whole game where it was just like, wow, they cannot block them, and they could not figure out a counter at all. And that was the most, to me, I think the most kind of stunning part of that game.
And it was weird in that they could run the ball. They had 180 rushing yards, sack adjusted, of course. A lot of sacks backing up. But that, I think, to me, was the most startling revelation of Saturday night. Like, we knew that South Carolina could potentially disrupt you, but I mean, going into the season, I remember I'm coming back, got a kid, coming off paternity leave, let's get some insider notes, let's do the insider thing. And I'm asking all these people who've watched practice. It was like 22, Max, where people were going in and out, and you're like, is this, are we worried here about the offensive line? And there was no worries. They were very confident in this offensive line. And then to go out and just, I mean, they couldn't call pass plays anymore. Like, that was
the most worrying thing for me is that you can't tell me that we don't have 5 guys on the offensive line. Now, I know the product we put out on the weekend, but you can't tell me we don't have 5 guys on the O-line that are able to physically match it at some stage with South Carolina. Our supposed best player had a 5.1 PFF grading. That's not even like you're just getting bullied. That's like you may as well put a cone out there and just let the cone sit there all day. Like, that's just a lack of effort. And to me, that's insane, coming up to the first SEC game of the year against a team that we really don't like, at home, in front of the fans, and there was no effort. Like, we weren't even trying. Like, at one stage, they dropped a rush 3. We had max protect. We had 2 guys for every one of theirs, and all 3 got home. Not 1, not 2. All 3 of the guys got home. And to me, like, the only thing that I think about is, like, maybe this could be a quick fix, and, like, we just didn't try. And maybe if they put in some effort, maybe we can fix it up, because the run, like you said, the run game looked okay. Defense held their own. They did everything they could. Yes, there was a couple of breakdowns. I get that, but that's going to happen when they get the ball back every 3 plays.
Yeah.
Like,
Field position killed them too. Yeah.
Field position killed, exactly. So to me, like, maybe we're not within the 4 walls. We don't know what, have they quit on the O-line coach? Have they quit on the OC? Have they just decided that they don't want to play because someone was messing around with someone else on the team? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what the nuance is, but there was no effort. It wasn't like we called the wrong thing, we did this, we did that. It was just, we didn't even try.
And I don't know if, Stoops, he said that, especially defensively, he's like, no, there was some good effort there. There was just horrible missed execution. In the pass protection, they were like, we didn't have the right counters. Like, we just didn't have anything. You could feel that, you could sense that. And I worry, Drew, how much of how Stoops was just as shocked as we were. And that's the part that I think is a little upsetting, is that they felt like they had the guys to succeed and they didn't. So, like, how bad is it if they're misassessing what they have that poorly? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Max is saying about us not being in the 4 walls, and could it be this, could it be that? Okay, maybe it is the second week of the season.
Yeah.
Those are conversations you have week 8, 9, 10 when you play
November,
games, things are falling apart, guys
right.
are tired, maybe some turmoil. This is a game, it's not an opponent that snuck up on them. They knew it was one of the biggest games on the schedule. They knew game day had already mapped out where they're going to be for the Georgia game. Mm-hmm. There's no reason this is one you come out as flat as they did, as unprepared as they were. I don't know how, as a competitor, you have your schedule and you see South Carolina with so much at stake and you come out and play like that. You say Stoops doesn't know. Well, what the hell's going on then if he doesn't know? Like, how can a team look so bad in the second week of the year when so much is on the line? It just doesn't make sense.
The weird part is that there was a couple moments there where you're like, okay, they might mess around and do something here. We got into run the damn ball mode in the second quarter. They just were, let's hand it off left and right. DSK and Jason Patterson toted it 11 times. You get some points, you get the interception before half, and you're thinking, okay, they come out, get a stop and a score. Like, Kentucky could win this thing 13-10. Like, this is just, it could be an ugly knockdown, drag them out. And then the fumble luck. That ball, look, I think I could have ran down from the press box and recovered some of those fumbles. 2 plays in a row, it's on there. And if they just recover one of them, hell, you could pick up one and return to the end zone. The game is flipped, and it wasn't there. It was whatever could go wrong did go wrong in that game.
Yeah, there was some bad luck in some of the things that happened, but it's also like there's also an element, I think, of you create your own luck, and Kentucky didn't deserve to probably recover those fumbles, really. And they just didn't deserve with how they came out and played in the plan. Nick, I think, like we heard today, Mark Stoops it's 10-6, and on the touchdown drive to put them up 17-6, it's 3rd and 14, Sellers breaks left, receiver wide open down the left sideline. They had the wrong call. Like with the helmet comm, they messed that up. So how does that happen? That can't happen. It just can't.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was confused by that today when Stoops he blamed the helmet.
So
explain that to me. I heard him say that.
Yeah. So you have to remember that with the green dot technology, it cuts off when the play clock's at 15 seconds. So there could have been a thing where they changed something with, let's say, 10 seconds on the play clock. So they had the hand signals to change the coverage.
And some guys didn't see it.
They were just relying on the helmet, which had already been turned off.
Yeah.
Unnamed player did not look to the sideline to get the new call. So that is probably what happened there. But it started, to me, high leverage situations with the game on the line, they lost all of them. 7-3, you got the third down after the interception. Slant's wide open.
Yeah.
It's wide open. They miss it to move the chains, potentially go up before half. Or tie the game. It's 10-3 before half. Then these third downs, it's 10-6, round midfield. It's third and long. Get off the field. You're getting the ball back. Middle of third quarter. Then you're down 17-6. To stay in the game, you got to get off the field. 3rd and 11. You're allowing them to convert. A lot of this is going to be offensive-driven, offensive-centric, I think, conversation around this team over the next few weeks. But the defense is the best unit on this team. They're the ones that got to make the big plays in some of these moments, right? They had 2 situations right there, and that's not even counting, Nick, the 2-sack fumble. You had a scoop and score opportunity. Deion Walker misses a fumble recovery. Those are the plays this group is going to be expected to make, and they just need to make.
But they didn't. Here, I'll say something nice. Okay.
You got this. Come on, you got one.
12 tackles for loss, 3 of 14 on third down, 3 forced fumbles, and 254 South Carolina total yards.
Yeah.
If I'd said that last week on the show, you'd been like, yeah, that sounds about right. And Kentucky wins, 17-7 or something.
I somewhat agree with your point, but at the same time, I felt like they had to make every play of the game. That was the thing. They made a bunch of plays. It wasn't as if they went out there and, we played okay and then we missed 2 or 3 big ones, big moments. I get it, we did. But we also made a bunch of big plays. Every time they went back out there, they had good field position. We made a bunch of tackles for loss.
Held them to a field goal.
If the defense is going to be expected to do everything when we're in for a long year, I know that is probably going to be the case from looks, but that's going to be a long year. If we can't, I had someone talk to me on the phone today that used to play on O-line for Kentucky, and he said, dude, if we can't protect to be able to just pass the ball simply, then what are we going to do? Because you can't just go out, and now we tried it. We ran the ball and we had some success, but then teams are going to be like, all right, they literally cannot pass the ball.
So let's jailbreak blitz.
Exactly. Yeah. So then you're in trouble.
How many times have we had this conversation in the Mark Stoops era where it's the defense, you got to do everything, and that's some of the big picture issues that a lot of folks in the YouTube chat are talking about now, which that thing is popping off. So thanks for joining us. I'm sure there's going to be totally rational responses throughout, no overreactions whatsoever. But from the very simple level, let's get down to the micro. Is Brock Vandagriff broken? Because I go back to the DJU that we saw at Notre Dame, and you're like, oh man, this guy's gonna be a great quarterback. And then he goes and opens the next season against Georgia, and he's just broken beyond repair for the next 4 years. Are there any reasons that we I think it's fair to wonder if Brock, if how rattled he got in that game, if he can get put back together. They're saying they're confident in him, but that's got to be tough.
It's hard to evaluate your quarterback when your left tackle grades out at 5.1.
That's a crazy stat.
It's literally like us with the O-line on the weekend. And I would be nervous too if I was Brock, because I'd be like, well, I don't know if I trust Drew on my left over here.
I'm not trying to change the Vander conversation, and I think the Pro Football Focus grades sometimes can be a little wonky.
Yeah, and that was just on pass blocking too. His run was 5.1 for pass blocking is.
Tommy Boy, 7 miles an hour, 5. Your grade was 5 on a scale of 1 to 5.
He's supposed to be our best lineman.
I know. He's been in college since I have. That's why I like Vandagriff. He didn't play well. He was running for his life at times. Sometimes he should step up and he's just getting the hell out of there. But it's hard to form a strong opinion on him moving forward when the line was that bad. And, he's looking up, plays Georgia next week.
And then he makes a good play. It's a 20-yard throw down the field. And then, oh, wait, there's a flag. All right, well, let's hand it off this time. Oh, 15-yard run. Nice. Oh, There's another flag. Okay, let's just let's just get out of here. Oh, there's another flag. 3 flags in a row. You're down 17-6. You try to screen your way out of it, and Brock's lucky that there weren't a pair of pick sixes. I mean, it was just like they could not get out of their own way. It was
the only positive will be that he probably played some scout team quarterback for Georgia, and those plays are kind of during practice schemed up so the defense can look good. He's going to be used to a pretty good pass rush for Georgia.
Well, he had Georgia's scout team offensive line blocking for him, which I assume is better than
Georgia's special teams.
Whatever.
But yeah, to that point, you can't do anything unless these OL issues get fixed up. Now, it could be a case where they don't see a pass rusher like Dylan Stewart the rest of the year. So maybe that's the right medicine there. But you have to fix these issues, or you just can't operate. What would happen is they would put Wimsatt in, and they would run some version of the Lynn Bowden offense if they couldn't fix this. Now, I don't think we'll get there. For the Vandergrift stuff, I think, one, you should not judge him in a second career start where they just simply could not block. But there was times where he looked panicked and rushed and back there, and he was bailing when he shouldn't have bailed. He was moving places where he shouldn't move. He was making bad reads on some of the jet sweep series actions when he should have kept the ball. So
Stoops did not like that play.
so that's a little concern. The decision making part, that's a little concerning. We'll see moving forward, but he's still we still don't know a ton about him. We're still learning about who he is and what he can be.
And unfortunately, the snowball effect of this is we're going to get a very, very good insight into how mature our wide receivers have become in the offseason.
That's a great point.
Because we can't get the ball to them. I already know they're in the locker room. There's going to be chatter. Man, this dude sucks. Man, this OC sucks. And all of a sudden, our maturity of Dane Key, Marion Brown, all those guys is going to be tested because they're going to be running a lot of routes where they don't get the ball, and they're just going to have to do that.
And if we're being honest, the perimeter blocking has kind of sucked through 2 games.
Yeah, I'll be honest, the Barryon Dane thing, I know everyone's calling it a contract year. We got a lot bigger problems with Dane and Barryon are doing, and if this is their contract year, they'll be back next year or somewhere. It has not been a good start for anyone.
Yeah.
Oh man, Bush Hamden. Speaking with him after the game, he was about as shell shocked as we were. He looked rough. Which, speaking of rough, there's good reads, there's bad reads, and then there's ad reads. Club Blue NIL, official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support UK's NIL efforts. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitation to special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, side merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, and much, much more. Subscribe today. ClubBlueNIL.com. You can even pick which sport you want to support. So, if you're feeling down about one team and you want to support another one, you can with Club Blue NIL. Club Blue NIL, proud sponsors of the KSR Football Podcast.
All right, I got to applaud that transition. What'd you say? There are good reads, there are bad reads, and there are ad reads?
Yeah, you like that?
Was that off the cuff, or did you have that dialed up?
You got to figure things out sometimes. We're figuring things out today because that was rough. That was a rough.
I got to know, your Larry King microphone, I got this thing back, and it looks like Max is talking into a can.
Yeah, he's talking into a can.
Steven got us hooked up. We have new equipment. That's going well. But you do seem very professional with your bright silver, your transition.
I would love to recreate the Jerry Seinfeld interview. All-time Larry King moment. That always makes me laugh. Hey, you're canceled? We were canceled. And there was my bad Seinfeld impression of the day. Speaking of bad, the part that I struggle with the offensive line, we're going to beat this dead horse just a little bit longer, is that it's hard for me to imagine how you can go from opening up holes for running backs, but then you can't stop a nosebleed. And I tried asking Soups about that today. There was a lot of people, y'all gotta ask the hard questions. Like, well, they don't have to answer them because we really didn't get it. But if there's one thing that's clear about Eric Wolford as a coach, pass blocking, that's clearly not his strength. We saw that at Alabama. We're seeing that this year. They even tried to keep tight ends in block. That didn't help. So, is there anything that can be done? I know that Soups has confidence in Eric Wolford, Mr. Luckett.
Yeah, I don't think he would have made the move if he didn't, and he has said he believes in him. The way he coaches, the way he recruits, the kind of his more like, I guess, I don't know, aggressive or intense coaching style, I think is what you would hear them say. But it is concerning. Like, it was bad Saturday. It was bad.
It was so bad.
Now you have to, I think, as play caller, if you've got to have ways to scheme around that, whether it's screens, moving the pocket, quick snapping, different things to try to do. It seemed like Kentucky didn't have a counter to that, and that's what was so concerning. So we'll have to see what they can kind of figure out moving forward. But Saturday was alarming. It was alarming, and it's been. This 3 years with.
If it highlights one thing, the late great John Slyman, like his ability to not only recruit but to obviously coach that O-line it hasn't been the same since. I know Wolford was okay year one in 2021, I believe it was. Yeah. It was solid, but he was kind of coming off the heels of
all those guys.
Slyman's guys and all that. Exactly, absolutely, and
some
so
dudes.
It showed like. Since he's gone, the big blue wall has become, it's just been knocked down. It's kind of like the wall on the south of our country that we're in right now. It seems to be non-existent. So, he's got to obviously receive a lot of praise like he did, but then since then, like, how have we not been able to recruit at that similar level?
Well, they've got some bad breaks.
See, and that's part of it. You recruited Grant Bingham, 4-star guy.
Notre Dame wanted.
Yeah. Keontae Goodwin, 5-star. Nick Hall, 4-star All-American. Aren't any of them playing football anymore?
They've all essentially retired or retired.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of bad luck in that. Now, with that said, their recruiting was just not good enough under Yinzer, and that's essentially why he's not. That's why he's the assistant O-line coach with the Texans right now.
And then on top of that, I think it is harder to get guys from the portal who can play quality football. But my bigger question is, if your only way to have success offensively under Mark Stoops is having the best offensive line, then that's not going to happen.
Yes, I think
it's just not.
You can't just hang your hat on you having a top 5 SEC offensive line every year. That's going to be hard to replicate year over year at Kentucky. Now, with that said, they should be playing better over a 3-year period than what we've seen, right?
You got to be able to call a pass.
But it says something to what we've had in the last few years in terms of development at O-line, like ability to develop these players. Like Kentucky's big thing is recruit and develop.
Yeah.
And Slyman, these guys weren't 5-star guys and 4-star guys that he was bringing in. And he had NFL player after NFL player after NFL player. Yeah. We had draft picks all the time when he was there. And so obviously one was his ability to identify talent, but then also to develop that talent over the long course. And Freddie used to talk about, well, the new guys that come in, they just want to play 5 guys and they don't want to play anyone else. And Slyman was always big rotation guy, get the guys in. So, there's got to be something to that in terms of just our ability to, at the moment, develop.
It's hard to develop with the lack of continuity, in the coaching churn. And Stoops talked about that today and kind of admitted that it takes a toll on your operation.
I just don't understand with the line. Outside of Mincy and Farmer, who've still played a lot of football, on the left side, those aren't new pieces. Like I said, Marcus Cox is 7th year of football.
Eli Cox has been here a long time.
And they've played some good football. Yeah. Eli was a midseason All-American 2 years ago. You could say maybe that was a little fluky of how, that award's given out 6 games in, but they're still better than what showed up on Saturday. That's just what's so frustrating is how do you fall that far behind?
Yeah, I don't, they're not going to play like that all year, I don't think. But
they did it when it mattered the most.
Yeah, my question all season, Nick, was what's the ceiling really? What are you going to get out of this group in a 12-game run?
We saw how bad it could be in one game.
We saw how bad it could be in one game.
It was really bad.
We know Marcus Cox is going to play better. We know Eli Cox is going to be a solid player in the middle, but then you've got these unproven pieces like Jagger Burton you're still waiting on to play to his potential. Then Gerald Mincy, he's been kind of on a start SEC team, and then Jalen Farmer's a first-year starter.
But you look at South Florida, they competed with Alabama. You look at Northern Illinois, they competed with Notre Dame. What do we we're at SEC. I understand that there's different levels of SEC football, and there is the absolute elite. But there were 2 top 10 or top 5 teams, Alabama and Notre Dame, going up against teams that aren't even in the power discussion.
Well,
and they were able to compete and like go up against them, and Neron beat one of them and beat the other one. Like, what do we like? We can't be that far off.
Yeah, basically all that is like you have this opportunity here. You know, like it's talked about, it's this biggest opportunity this season. Like, how are you not ready to play one of your better games this season?
And that's where he says we got outcoached. I mean, they did, and that's not like you can't just say that to like try to eat some bullets and explain away things. I mean, they got outcoached by Shane Beamer.
But not even outcoached in scheme, outcoached in the ability to get the guys to play hard.
I mean,
like
yeah. I mean, I think all of the above, because that was the part that felt pretty I mean, there was plenty of deflating moments, but when Kentucky got that interception, it's down at the 30. I didn't have a lot of confidence that they knew what they were going to do to try to punch it in the end zone.
Yeah.
You know, like it just, and I don't know how many people inside Kroger Field did. And that's the other part that's worrisome, is it's like you have all of this mojo, you have all this steam. I appreciate all of you all watching out there right now, but I know there's a lot of people who just are tuned out. Right? Like the Texas A&M stuff, the pony up, the Stoops not doing interviews, there's a lot of things that made fans mad in this offseason. Beating Beamer was going to be the way to get them back. Drew, what can this team do to get fans back? Because a lot of them are already putting their tickets up for sale.
I've seen a lot of that now. It's just my own Facebook. You know, it's only a few people, but, you know, I log on yesterday and I see multiple posts of my season tickets are for sale. If you told me that a week or two ago, I wouldn't believe that's possible with all the excitement we have. Like, talking about the ponying up, fans have ponied up. The NIL, is it perfect? No. Got plenty of room to grow, but it's in a good spot. The fans have done about as much as they can to this point. Season opener, nonstop lightning delays. People stayed in their seats because they want to see this team that we keep being told is the best on paper that Stoops has ever had. They want to be a part of that. The pregame atmosphere was great for South Carolina. Can't ask for better from the fans, and then that's what they get in return. So I don't blame fans for checking out at this point, even if it is week 2. I'm going to Texas. I'm not going to cancel, but I can tell you my excitement is way down. Just not that I thought they would have won that one, but you have a little hope, a little optimism ahead of time going into it that you can compete. Now I'm just expecting that's going to be an ass kicking. I know there's people I know personally that have already backed out of Oxford, Ole Miss. It's what you get when you shit the bed in week 2 like this with a team that had so much excitement and optimism around it.
And the answer is compete, right? That's how they can turn around, compete. I mean, we saw, I think, 2 years ago with Will Levis, we were in a terrible position, and Georgia came to town, and we competed. And I think we lost, 14-3 or something? It was like a really, really low score. But everyone was like, hey, that's what we want to see. We may not beat this team, but we try. And Will he was back to running the ball that game, and he was trying to run through guys. Defense was playing hard. Like, you just want to see the competitiveness in the guys and show some effort for all the money and all the things that the fans do, like you said, sticking around. The players should be giving it back with effort, and whether that's on the players or on the coaches to bring it out of them, they got to figure it out.
Well, let me ask you all a Revel XP question, and we'll just play a game. We'll just play a little game. We'll play hypothetical. We'll dream big or small, however you want to consider it. Best case scenario, worst case scenario. Who would like to take the mic for best case scenario? Who here has the most optimistic potential outlook for what could happen? Anybody? Any volunteers?
I mean, a week's a long time in football, right? Like, you can't tell me we're as bad as what we play. There's no way the result is the result. I understand that's what people can keep saying. But we're not as bad as that. Our best guy on the O-line just graded out at a 5. Like, he's never going to grade out at a 5 again, is he? I mean, Eli Cox is better than what he put up. Like, hopefully it's something that is going on in the 4 walls that they can turn around real fast, and they can get the guys back on board and playing together and playing with some effort, because that's a thing that you can change week to week, is the effort. Now, the scheme and all that, I understand, but I think if we play with more effort, we're going to be a much better football team.
I think there's, like, if you're going game by game, I mean, what's the spread, Drew? It's like 23 against Georgia, something like that? 24 and a half. Mark Stoops covering special versus Kirby Smart. You know, they come out, play hard. I don't have a rosy outlook on how Kentucky could block the Ole Miss defensive line anymore. So, you know, maybe scratch that one off. But let's say, you do win that game against Ohio. You have a bye week. You figure out something. You beat Vandy at home. And then you go to Florida. You beat Florida. Florida, even though DJ Lagway had a big game, that's a whole mess down there. Auburn, I don't know if they can score points either. So what? If you reel off that 3, if you can win,
you get to 5-3 in that scenario.
Okay, so 5-3. That's all right. The biggest problem with our optimistic outlook is there's a lot of opportunities to be humbled in there, and there's some bad.
And you're banking on winning home games, and this team is not. I mean, let's be
Even
honest.
Vanderbilt looks good. Like, one that we used to just say that's a win.
Yeah.
2-8 in your last 10 SEC home games.
Trying to keep the smallest bit of optimistic, like, can we find something? To be fair, Kentucky's never been good as a favourite. Like, we've never been a good front runner. We've always been the chip on the shoulder, like, let's go us against the world type thing. Even in our good years, it's been like, oh, Kentucky's really not that good. They're not that good. We've never really been this team where we're 10-point favourites by Vegas, and now I know it's a stretch, but it will be nice to be the underdog again for a little while.
Don't have to worry about that.
That's one of my big takeaways. What's going on right now? It's more broad picture, but Stoops' best success is you telling him he can't do something. And they get in the mud, bite ankles, whatever it takes to punch up. Whether they could be the least talented team, but they're going to go to work. I feel like Stoops has got a little credit, got a little money, and he's lost that, I'm the dog here, punching up, pulling you down. I might not be as talented as you, might not have a team as you, but we're going to fight this out. I feel like he's lost a little bit of that.
That, to me, was part of why Saturday was so disappointing, because, to me, Nick, it felt like they kind of got some of that back.
This whole season.
Louisville, and they should have won the Clemson game. Like, it felt like they got some of that back, like some of that juice back. Mm-hmm. And it started with Deion Walker pretty much saying, I hate Louisville, talking smack. And then they went and won that game. You felt like they were getting some of that back. And then it's gone. And so then like what Drew's talking about is like that gritty type play style. Just go out there and muck up the game, and the adversity's not gonna be a thing for them. That they're gonna thrive in adversity situations. Now it's back to wondering, like before the Louisville game, where they just crumbled in some of these adverse moments, and then 2022 when they crumbled in some of the adverse moments, like where are they going to go? It's hard to know, and that's something we're going to find out, because they've already dug a pretty big hole here for themselves. Are they going to climb out, or are they just going to sit in the hole?
I don't want to be a 10-point favorite again. No. I like the Stoops that says, "Oh, you'll have a shiny toy. That's cool. I'll meet you in the parking lot." Yeah. Sure, we're not as good as you, but we're going to be in it because that's the way we fight. That edge seems to be gone a little bit after getting a little bit of success and all that. I feel like they've lost that.
The kid that grew up in Youngstown, and their one game between all the brothers was hide the belt. And when you find the belt, you get to beat the people up with the belt. Like that's the Stoops we need. But maybe the coaching staff need to get out there in the facility and hide the belt, play hide the belt, and just start whacking each other, because maybe that brings a bit of toughness back.
And now it doesn't even fit.
Yeah. And it's funny though as well, going off a little bit of Ted. It's funny how the fan base, and I fully understand where it comes from, will flip so quick to hey, we need to throw the ball, we need to go beat the offense like Alabama and all this, and then you play like you do on the weekend. Is why don't we just run the ball? Why don't we just get a good O-line and run the ball and play solid defense and don't worry about all that other stuff?
Well,
that's a tricky part too. Like, how do you find that balance right now?
Yeah, it's tough. I do want to throw out some catnip though for the folks who are very angry online. Worst case scenario. How bad could it get? Vanderbilt, Diego Pavia show, running all over the Cats. That could happen.
Or they have like 91 points in 2 weeks.
Oh, they have lots of points.
Yeah, they're close to 100 points in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know what exactly the worst case scenario, like how bad it could get, because you do still see people on this team that will play on Sundays.
Yeah, that's an important part I think we need to remember.
Right. So, I think the worst case isn't the wheels falling off and Stoops retiring mid-season. Like, I don't think that's worst case. I think that's actually the easiest out, right? Because then you just go hire Summerall, you move on. It's like the lifeline that Calipari gave you. The worst case scenario would have been Cal staying for another year. So, if you have this weird scenario where, they lose to Vanderbilt, but they beat Auburn, and then they beat Louisville, and then you're 5-7, and then you're just in this weird little purgatory where Brock's coming back and Bush is coming back, but are they any good? And you're on the hook for a big salary for Brad White, but then you're questioning, like, can the defense, they had all these pros, and they can't stop a nosebleed then. That, to me, I think is even worse, is getting in some gross middle ground where, I mean, you can't pay $44 million for Stoops to go away. Like, if you're thinking the most dire straits, it's being just good enough to suck. And I think if you took a step back, you would say, well, Stoops has bought up enough goodwill to take, to have one of these seasons where he takes a step back. But it's just the outlook, the future could be bleak if you get in this weird middle ground.
You can't afford to get behind the chains in the SEC with recruiting and NIL, and particularly, like, we talk about the teams that want the fan bases that pump money in are ones with new coaches or teams that have just come off a really good record.
Yes.
It's going to be hard to raise money if we go 3-9, 4-8. And I mean, we kind of joked about it before, but we could lose that Ohio game. Like, why not? Especially if we play like we did on the weekend.
I've been there for an Ohio loss.
Yeah, that's not guaranteed. So the worst case scenario is you have a terrible season, you fire the OC again because you decide that, well, we need a change. You fire the O-line coach because you decide you need that. You got no continuity on the offensive side of the ball, and then you don't have enough money and I think Stoops does deserve, obviously, to stick around. But then you just go through a period where it's like, well, no one wants to give money to the program, and we're not winning games, and we fall down the SEC. And once you get behind in the SEC, it's going to be hard to come back with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, the worst case is just Vandergrift just can't play. He can't be a starting quarterback. And if that happens, then the losses will pile up. To me, Nick, like, Bush Hampton's taking it on the chin right now in this fan base, but he's proven enough where he's going to, I think, probably end up building a competent offense here. And Brad White, now, while the defense hasn't been what we wanted it to be last year, they're probably going to end up being a middle-of-the-road defense at bare minimum in this conference. And those two things together will allow them to win some games. When you play out a 12-game season, it just may end up being 5-7, 6-6. And either of those, they're like the same to me. It's 6-6.
Well,
you're going to Memphis.
6-6 going to Vegas, though. We could have fun in Vegas after Christmas, right?
Yeah, but for the program long term, you're just kind of in this weird, like, you're in a situation where it's 3 years in a row where the arrow's pointing down, where you're coming up short of the expectations. And that they're not necessarily crazy expectations either that they had in either of those years. I think either of the last 2 years, if you won the South Carolina game in 2022 and you win that Vanderbilt game, 2023, you win the Vanderbilt game in 22, 8-4, I think those would have been looked at as successful seasons. So they're only a game off, really. But this
could have been the game. That's what, and it's Beamer too. Like this guy's after the game talking about this is his like full circle moment where he got offered the job the night that Kentucky beat South Carolina by 30 during the COVID season, and now he's come back as like this triumphant hero. And Drew, that was how Stoops climbed the ladder, was beating South Carolina, and now you've lost 3 in a row. And I just
you have to. How does it get flipped? Right? How do you flip it back the other way? To me, there's a lot riding on Vandergrift.
Yeah.
Like if he ends up getting it to another level, then that to me is how you flip it. But can you get it to that point? It's hard to know, and the offensive churn, you have to wonder if it's just really caught up to them.
We're about to find out this weekend how much the players love Stoops and how much they love their OC and how much they love their DC and all the coaches that are surrounding them, because if they have any care for the program or the coaches, you're going to see a very, very good effort this week. That doesn't mean we're going to beat Georgia. That doesn't mean we're going to come that close, but you will at least see an effort. If they say, you know what, we don't really like the guys in charge of us right now and we don't feel like they're putting in the time and effort, you're going to see an embarrassing performance, and I really hope we don't see that, because that'd be the wheels falling off if we just come out and go 50-0 or something like that.
I just wish they had seen that this Saturday. You have a Beamer who, last week I'm watching Feinbaum, and there are people calling in from South Carolina wanting Beamer gone. Yeah. He had won 2 in a row against Stoops. Keep bringing up the game day thing. How do you not look around and say, this is a big opportunity? If I love my coach, I don't want Shane Bieber wearing those sunglasses again in Lexington. Like, this should have been the get-up game that they just played and didn't show up for at all.
It was very frustrating. I know folks who watched at home also saw the graphic where they had the 2021 quarterback rankings, and it's like Caleb Williams, Quinn Ewers, Brock Vandegrift. And you're just like, hey, can we get him to be one of those guys?
One of those things is not like the others.
But what if he ends up being like that? What if?
What if we get him killed because the line can't protect him?
That's a possibility too. And you know, one thing I like about Brock is he cannot tell a lie. And I think we saw he didn't want to blame injury on him being bad, but he said those hits, one to his throwing shoulder, did leave a little something after that Southern Miss game. I think that's part of the indecisiveness you saw against South Carolina was like, oh, I don't know if I can do what I'm supposed to do. I felt a lot of indecisiveness there, and that was the one big question mark we had about this quarterback coming in that, you know, Rusty Manziel told us about Luckett, where he's like, this guy's got all the skill in the world, but he's got to be faster at making decisions. He's got to be on point. We didn't see that in week 1, and I think part of it is because the game plan they had was just completely thrown out the window because they thought they were better enough. They thought they could hold up long enough to be able to do some things, and the offensive line could not.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, it puts a lot of pressure on Bush Hamden. You got to figure out a way to craft an offense with an offensive line that may have a lot of issues.
Well, I'll ask you a question. How quickly, let's say he is hurt, and you believe him for what he's saying and all that, how quickly do you flip to let's go Wimser and go the Lynn Bowden offense and just run the ball and be creative like that?
I think that's something that's why these next 2 games are important. In Ohio, it's probably just or maybe even more important about figuring out what you are and what you have on offense before you start really the 3-game stretch that I think defines this season, which is Vanderbilt, Florida, Auburn.
Ohio gave Syracuse a game, just saying.
Yeah, they hung around with them,
Yeah. Oh, man, that was tough. Another thing that's tough, Georgia, they're pretty good. And College Game Day, it was supposed to come to Kentucky, but they lost, so now it's going to South Carolina. They directly stole it from us.
ESPN's like, why are we going to South Carolina again? That's how bad we fumbled that. It was set. They had areas carved off, permissions for certain things. They were coming to Lexington.
The bag was dropped. It was severely dropped. But we'll give you our own version of College Game Day. Would you like that? That sounds fun.
Do I have to be McAfee? Am I taking my shirt off?
You don't have to take your shirt off.
Oh, okay.
But our representing sponsors at Revel XP, we're going to be out at the catwalk, by the catwalk. Once it's over, you can come see me and Mr. Luckett. We're going to do a little pre-game show out at the Cat's Corner. It's just north of the catwalk, just on the other side of another field house. So get to the catwalk, run right around the corner. You come see Luckett and I at the Revel XP tent, about 5:30-ish, give or take, where you can see the setup that Revel XP has to make sure that you have the best tailgates all season long, an all-inclusive experience with Revel XP. Set up, tear down, they'll take care of you. Tailgating, here's the one thing. You may lose the game. You're going to win the tailgate with Revel XP. Just go to the drop down for their teams and events, and you'll find out how you can book them for your tailgate. The tailgates, I admittedly, I didn't want to leave the Revel XP tailgate on Saturday because it was so wonderful. It was spectacular, carefree, unbridled optimism. You can find some of that with Revel XP. So come see us out. Come check out the Revel XP setup at the Cat's Corner about 5:30 this Saturday before Kentucky takes on Georgia. Have you checked the weather, Drew?
I have not checked the weather. There's nothing you can say that will upset me about the weather. Is there a tornado?
Hurricane.
Honestly,
Hurricane
good.
Yeah.
I want the worst weather.
Run the damn ball.
Yeah.
Remember, in Max, it worked for 2019. We had him on the ropes. I remember that stop. Chris Oates is like firing up the Kentucky section. It's nothing. If Chris doesn't drop that touchdown,
Dude, if the punter doesn't punt it sideways.
That was the one bad punt you had, right?
I mean, they went and scored the next play, and
oh my gosh!
Was,
I forgot about that part. I didn't want to.
You don't have to bring that up.
I killed someone's grandma in the stands. So she wasn't expecting the ball to come sideways at her, and it hit her. She's trying to enjoy her ice cream, and
she shouldn't have been sitting there. To be
sorry
honest.
to her.
I would argue that would be the worst thing that could happen.
Oh,
Kentucky.
A hurricane or the grandmother dying?
grandmother dying.
Kentucky needs to play a game in regular elements because they need to figure out who they need to be on offense. They have, to me, these next 8 quarters is really important. You got to figure that out, and so I want to have normal playing field. And like, to me, like these games, like this Georgia game, it is what it is. This game is about Kentucky. It's not about Georgia. It's about Kentucky figuring out who they want to be and how they want to play and how they're going to go try to win these last 7-8 games of the season. They got to figure out an identity and how they're going to attack offensively. And that's what this next 2 games to me is really about.
Yeah, but number one, Georgia in that scenario. What team has to get right game, but it's the team that lost like 1 game in 4 years?
Yeah, I don't even think
40
what
right
kind of
here. Try to
BS?
judge your offense off it.
Yeah, I've already
42?
cussed once. I got to be careful. But, I mean, that's really what we have in front of us in the figure-it-out game is Georgia.
And here's the thing, too, is this Georgia defense isn't your traditional, like, all 4 of their defensive linemen are going to be first-round picks. South Carolina might actually have a better front than Georgia.
Ninth, yes.
But their secondary, now you might have time for Vandergrift to throw, but there's going to be nobody to throw to because they can just man up with you. Like Kamari Lassiter and co. Like, those guys are really, really good. So, like, that's another part of this that's I don't know.
It's operation standpoint. It's no penalties.
Can you line up and call a play?
Can you win the pre-snap? Can we not? No illegal formations. There was 2 illegal shifts. Win the pre-snap, and then operation-wise, when you're backed up, can you get a couple first downs so you can play field position? It's not necessarily going and scoring. It's operating at a winnable or sustainable level, and I think that is the most important part in this game.
Can you grade out at better than 5.1?
Can you grade it? Can you protect more than for a half second or a second?
And that's
can you operate efficiently? They could not operate. They were the Bad News Bears on offense on Saturday.
Roush had more cups of coffee than Cox had his points on his offensive line.
That's true.
I still go back to they rushed 3, and all 3 got home, and it was 2-on-1 in every single block, and they blew up every single.
One play there was a triple team.
When Georgia rushes 3 and drops 8, can you have more than 2 seconds to operate in the pocket?
I go like trying to think of stark contrast in performance over the years. Like usually, you wrote about it, Drew, about it being one of the, because I don't know if it's the worst loss of the Stoops era. It's on the Mount Rushmore of bad losses, but from a letdown, like this is not the team we saw the week before. We actually probably saw a different seesaw from the South Carolina loss to the win at Louisville, where you were like, where was this team a week ago? Because that's what it was for all the bad reasons, right? Like I don't think they committed a preset penalty against Southern Miss. There might have been a hold or something in there. Like we had the Sackham Souls late hit on kick return, but like they played a clean game and they won 31-0, and then they went and gave up 31 points to a bad South Carolina offense. Like that was one of the craziest just seesaws, and it makes it so hard for any of us to guess what's next because like you saw each extreme in a 2-week span, the craziest of extremes. And so like how do you forecast it? I mean, the players were shocked, the coaches were shocked. I don't even know how. That's like my almost existential dread coming into today. Is it's so hard? Like we got co-cocked, and we're still kind of like, what the hell's going on here?
And
this might not make sense, but I don't know if it's the worst loss. I mean, he's lost to Western, Southern Miss, but it's the biggest letdown in how it went. I've said a couple times already, so much was on the line. 6 points. 6 points in a game this important. That's why it's the biggest letdown. I mean, Vandy 2 years ago might have been a worse loss.
Betting
Western,
yeah.
But just what you have on paper, talent-wise, what Las Vegas thought of you, not what Drew Franklin, KSR thought of you. People call us homers, fanboys. Las Vegas had you as a heavy favorite.
And
they don't get it wrong very often, and you scored 6.
What was at stake too?
Yeah.
Like to me, it was very comparable to kind of the 2016 Southern Miss Florida games kind of combined, where you had to win that Southern Miss game. If you didn't, you thought it was going to be a bad season, and then you doubled down by just getting absolutely smoked by a Florida team that had no offense when you looked at it by the end of the year. But they were able to rally and figure some stuff out on offense. But the schedule's a lot tougher this year.
Well, the answer
And
the answer would be, with inconsistent preparation becomes inconsistent performance. Like clearly, the standards in some parts of that football program right now at Kentucky are just not where they need to be. And this might be the kick up the backside that we need to get back to, hey, we've let a few things slip. We need to be harder on guys in certain areas or whatever it has to be. And maybe that does bring about a quick recovery from this. Or maybe we've just thrown in the towel. I don't know.
Well,
we're about to find out.
Maybe we can end on a somewhat relatively high note because the 2016 team this does feel a lot. I mean, you're walking into a buzzsaw at Georgia that could be similar to that
Alabama
Florida game from however many years ago, or the Alabama game.
Well, you have to think. Now it's different because they had that huge South Carolina game that was at that year, the fourth game of the year, where they put Steven Johnson in and they kind of figured out, hey, this guy wearing number 26 probably needs the football, so let's make him our feature back.
So who can be the savior? We had Steven Johnson, Chip maybe. He wasn't on the depth chart. Maybe he could be back. Jason Patterson did look pretty good. Demison Mukarmbe
Swap the punter.
pretty good.
I feel like both weeks the running backs, what they've been tasked with Chip being out, they've looked good. Demi looked a little bit like a workhorse a little bit at times.
So maybe.
But you have to get 6 and 7 and 9 the football. That's a big part of this offense. So how do you get them involved and play winning football? That is the big, thing they need to figure out here over these next 2 weeks.
If I know anything about playing video games, it's a lot of trips, bunch, just them crisscrossing. They can't guard that. Flag football, you ever play flag football back in the day? You get in the bunch and you just it leaves the people in the rec league stunned and confused. I'm sure the same could be said about the Georgia Bulldogs. Definitely comparable talent.
Well, luckily, I can't speak for the whole panel, but Luckett and I, our Sundays were just as bad as our Saturdays with the Bengals and Titans. So really, the whole sport of football, I think, should just be canceled. I think we should move on to we got postseason baseball coming up.
High school football could
There's some good movies out right now streaming. High school football, LCA with the bounce back. I just think really pro and college football, they can't hurt me any more than they've hurt me in the last 72 hours.
I think Luckett said he saw his teams recover 0 out of 12 fumbles in 2 days. It wasn't the prettiest. My Pittsburgh Steelers won without scoring an offensive point.
I took Atlanta in the Survivor League, and they got beaten by a team that didn't have an offensive touchdown.
Yeah.
Which, that's being a Kentucky football fan and Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Yeah, same thing.
Except Kentucky doesn't have TJ Watt. Sorry, I get all the Watts. There's so many of them. They're really good.
Can I read a quote from the Titans head coach? We're complaining about Kentucky, but Will Levis.
I saw this.
That was a pretty bad fourth quarter. What did Brian
Callahan said, if we had just punted on 1st and 10 every time, we would have won the game. And he's not wrong.
Oh, man, that is not...
Punting on 1st down could have won the game.
Could we do that this week?
With Aiden Laros, he just punted the length of the field.
Wilson Berry's consistency actually needs to be studied at this point.
Missed 38.
He had a 37-yarder and a 38-yarder.
He's the golfer who says, I hit it 170 off the tee.
That video of Scheffler where he's calling out his distances on every
ball's
shot.
within the box. 5-yard box.
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. You got South Carolina fans in the chat. Get out of here.
Listen,
Our kick is good, by the way. Our kick is good.
Yeah.
Our kick went 2 from 2 again.
Yeah.
That's positive.
Yeah, for 6 points.
Honestly, I'm down for kicking 6 field goals a game to win. I would be perfectly happy with it. I was happy with the Steelers winning week 1. Let's run it back.
Defense, the third downs were really bothersome to me with the game and the balance. But they did some good things in that game. They've got to figure out some of this coverage bust issue, Nick.
Yeah.
2 of those, the touchdown and the second touchdown drive were because of coverage bust.
Yeah.
So
where Sellers doesn't even have to make a good throw.
They've got to figure it out. The safety position has been a disappointment through 2 games this season, and that's worrisome because that was kind of one of the positions that was
you thought could be a strength.
Bothersome last year. So they got to figure that out. But defensively, I think you see what they could be, what you think they could be. But offensively, they've got a whole other things to figure out.
It was a rough weekend. Friday night, the Kentucky volleyball team was up 2-0 in a top 10 matchup in Memorial Coliseum, and they've lost in 5. That was bad, but Drew, things are turning around. We got a top 10 upset in women's soccer.
That's
Take that,
big.
UCLA. Get the hell out of here. We're moving in the right direction. So who do we need to be good tonight? Like, what's some good mojo? Have we got any action on the 49ers Jets?
I don't. I'm retired from any action after the weekend.
LCA Eagles got their JV playing tonight, so
So let's get a JV win. Let's get small wins.
Are we doing a Merry Monday here? We're getting
Small wins. Just let's stack up some small wins because we need all we can right now. It's a tough time, but we're gonna make the most most of it over at Kentucky Sports Radio. Like I said, you can find us over at the Cat's Corner with Revel XP at about 5:30 after the catwalk before Kentucky, Georgia. Luckett and I were talking Wednesday night, and hey, we have these cool cards too, 50% off KSR Plus. So yeah, come see us about it.
I haven't seen these yet. I was looking for them earlier.
You gotta come. So when you see us, come find us. 50% off. It's beautiful. Don't give them the kids.
I had my hand over. I had my finger over.
Good job, Drew. This has not been fun, but neither was Saturday. We'll try to make it as fun, and hopefully this season, small wins start adding up, and we turn this bad boy around. For Drew Franklin, Max Duffy, and Adam Luckett, I'm Nick Roush. This has been the KSR Football Podcast.